Welcome to the Utility Room. My name is Jello, and with us here on the show, Carlo Lio. Carlo, thanks for joining us here in the Utility Room.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, us too. I've known Carlo for, I want to say it's got to be close to 2 decades.
I think we're
definitely pushing that for sure.
I'm aware of the story, but just because I'm aware of a part of the story, I don't know the whole story. I'm sure a lot of people don't. The curiosity is obviously there. How did you get started? I want to talk about what happened before the bite, before the vampire bite, the techno bite.
Right.
Before that happened, where were you at? Were you going to parties, to raves, warehouses, clubs? What was your entrance to it?
And it was around high school where my friends basically told me about we would be going to Richmond Street and hitting the top 40 clubs and stuff. That was our thing until one of my buddies told me about a rave, which he brought me to, and it was since then that I was just absolutely hooked.
Do you remember what rave this was?
The first rave I ever went to was I think it was a bittersweet rave.
Better Days. Was that
bittersweet?
Bittersweet was that Cyrus?
I don't remember, but it was Bad Boy Bill.
Okay.
Was playing, and the whole I think DJ Dan. I forget the full lineup, but
he brought me to one of these parties. Effective. Was this?
Yeah. I think it was at the shit. Where was it? Not the automotive center. One of the big spots.
Okay, so your first introduction was like a mega.
Yeah, it was a big one. So since then, I was definitely like hooked. Besides the music, it's that's one thing. But like the people, the acceptance, like it was just a whole other world. And from then, I obviously know Matt Harrington, who I went to high school with. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine. Yeah, no, I connected the AirPods because I'm hoping that there's not a feedback when we're talking from the microphone.
The feedback, there's just a little bit of like a stall, a delay.
Yeah,
but I think we're. Yeah, so in high school,
it's like a subtitles Ford movie.
Yeah. So high school, I was in high school with Matt Harrington, who you know well, and I found out that he was a DJ and was going to raves and stuff. So I actually started following him around a little bit, going to parties that he was playing at, and through him I really discovered like the whole underground world that was right in front of me that I never saw, and I discovered artists like you and the whole Toronto clan, and it was home from there. It didn't stop after that.
But you didn't jump into DJing right away. You were still on the dance floor.
That's correct. I was basically from I don't know 95ish to 2001, maybe 2002. I was just a straight partier, and then it was until whenever they started. Remember when they shut down all the raves and all the everything was just literally a blink of an eye. Everything was gone.
2001.
Yeah, 2001. It was then where I was like, holy shit, what am I going to do now? I need this music in my life. I need to, I need my fix. And that's when I decided to buy decks and, start buying records and started to DJ in my house. And it was solely for being a hobby. Like it was never, I want to be a DJ and I wanted to travel the world and be on stage. Like that was like a, wishful thinking. It was just literally, I just needed my fix and I wanted it in my house every day. I wanted to have it right there in front of me.
What was it that got you to techno? I'm jumping a bit ahead because right now, is that where you would situate your vibes? Would you call it techno?
Sorry, say it again. You cut out a little bit.
No worries. Is this where you would situate your vibe? Would you call it techno?
I would always put myself a little in between tech house and techno, and I think that's kind of like a sound that I've fell into and known as to be a little bit crossover. Because I make techno, I play techno, but I also play a lot of the other genres, and I never want to be like boxed into one of those categories. So I've always been, it was never a mission of mine to float in between these two genres, but it's just something I've been told. I've have a little bit of influence in all this stuff in my sound, whether it's DJing or production, and it's kind of what I want, because I don't want, if I put out a house release, then the next promoter that listens to it says, "Oh, well, he makes house," but that's not really the case. I make it all. You know what I mean?
What would you say happened? You're starting to shop for music. You're going to record stores.
Right.
What would you say was the first bite? Would you say it was house music? Were you doing progressive stuff? I mean,
No,
electro house?
I never got into the progressive. It was always the first bite was again the early raves, was the Chicago hard house, the Bad Boy Bill and DJ Bam Bam and CZR, however you say it.
Underground
That kind of
Construction
stuff.
Records.
Yeah, UC Music, like that was the first initial bite. And on those records you had these really banging tracks, and then you'd have a B-side that's like straight up funky filtered disco house. So I really got like both sides to it, and I grew to love them both and everything in between. So yeah, that's basically the first bite.
Do you feel that any of that stuff that happened, the sound, the vibes from Underground Construction Records, is that still an idea that exists in what you're doing today? Have you graduated into something that's more than that now, or do you still look back on those early moments of that hard Chicago sound?
That stuff will never leave me till this day. Whether it's like just as a music listener or a music creator, that stuff for me is legendary, and it's paved the way. It has, like, for me, a lot of music today is generic. There's a lot of bandwagon producers that jump on the newest sound, and for me, that stuff has like heart and soul, and it's music, and it's I've always tried to recreate it, and I've always, like, the funky filtered disco stuff. I always seem to turn back to it, and even now I've been making a whack load of it in my studio, because it's just I love it, and like every time I get a hint of it coming back, I start making more of it. Everything has its cycle, right? So
Right.
uh, I think that stuff is just timeless.
Do you think that, um, firstly, what would you say is the difference between what is the common Chicago sound, house music, the common
Yeah.
Chicago house music sound, and the hard house, which, as a quick digression, it feels like to me the hard house name somehow graduated to the UK and ended up on labels like Tidy. And that if you said hard house, and because that Tidy, the label became so popular, that if you said hard house, that people would say that it was from the UK. It wasn't from Chicago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what would you say would be the differences between the common Chicago house sound and then the hard Chicago house sound?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that hard house sound that we're talking about is something. I mean,
Was it
I've
was it
literally.
house?
I mean, they definitely adopted the name. I mean, like, it's two different sides of the spectrum in terms of house. I consider house like DJ Sneak and that kind of
Derek
stuff.
Carter.
Derek Carter, yeah, of course, all those guys. That is the epitome of house for me in terms of definition. The hard house, yeah. I mean, I if it didn't stem from Chicago, it probably wouldn't have been called hard house.
Okay.
But yeah, it is what it is, I guess.
So you think that because it was a city, the place of origin, that helped get that name?
Yeah, for sure.
What would you?
And I mean, and a lot of the guys that were making um that really hard house banging sound were also making like housey, like actual house tracks. So I guess to them it was just like, all right, this is still, I still make house, but it's a harder version of it, a real harder version of it, and called it hard house. I don't know.
Do you think that because of 4/4, the beat signature for house music, that
Yeah.
everything just kind of fell under the moniker house? And if so, would you recall a time back in those early rave days when there was really just two rooms, and one room would be called the house room, and the other room
Yeah.
would be called the jungle room?
Drum and bass room, jungle room.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Of
So
course.
there
Of
are
course.
these two rooms that were happening, and even though these two rooms were happening, there was more magic happening in each room than just what
For
those
sure.
names happened. So
Of course.
what was that split? What do you think? What do you think that split was, or why was everything, to be more specific, why was everything categorized as house?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it best. I mean, I think it was more of the 4/4, the 4/4 beat. Um, Whereas, jungle had the really fast breakbeaty type sound, and that's how the two were kind of, separated. But yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. It was categorized by just having a 4/4 beat. Meanwhile, there's so many genres within that one room, but they all, started with four
That's
kicks.
right. So
Yeah.
then there's this, Carlo. What would you say then is the differences between house and techno? Is it the sound design? Because is it the 808 versus the 909? Is it like, what would you say it might be?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, what I define as house has more of a musical aspect, more of, an uplifting type feeling, where techno is more, well, when I started with techno, was, more aggressive, more loopy, more repetitive, more marching. That's how I kind of differentiated the two. And for me as a producer, growing up and being more knowledgeable about both genres, I've tried to always have, elements of each combined into what I make. So, like I said before, how people always say like stuff I make could be a little bit crossover, can be played slower in a more housey or tech housey set, or if you sped it up, it could fit within a techno set.
When was it that you first started making the music? That the ideas from the record store and DJing weren't enough? Was it that you were missing an ingredient while you were playing, that you wanted to contribute your own ingredients towards it? Or was it just that you wanted to further yourself with the career, and knowing that records, putting them out, would help you do that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as I said, I started DJing around, I guess it was around 2001, and I started to make music shortly after, maybe 2002. Um, but again, it was not um, to hopefully make that extra step and to get noticed. It was still just very like, in a humble mind state, and just wanted to do it for myself and wanted to see if I could do it. Um, and I started doing it using, I don't even remember. It was a program that it's not even existent today. It was just something that put beats and sounds together. But it was just literally for myself. And after a few years, when I fully was able to actually construct and finish tracks and started playing them, in Toronto, uh, it took like a few of my friends to actually be like, hey, this is good. Maybe you should consider giving it to someone. Now that you have a couple gigs here and there, this guy knows this, but this person, and so on and so on. Like, why not just hand it out? And I was always very, you're your own worst enemy. It's never good enough. So it took, a handful of people to come at me more than once to be like, send this shit out. It's actually really good. And from there, when I did, and it actually got some recognition and got some play, is what was the first moment where I was like, okay, I guess maybe I can do it. It was straight validation. And that was like the switch where I was like, all right, maybe I can do this as a job, like just as in I'm just thinking in my own city, let alone like worldwide.
Right. Which
Yeah,
is now where your records are being played. If you brought
yeah.
yourself back to that moment, do you remember
Mhm.
the vibe that was within you before you actually went and mailed out the song? And with that being said, what was that process like back in 2002, 2003? How did you mail out the song? Did you send an email with a wave attached? Did you send a key? Did you burn a CD? What was your process?
Yeah, so I think this was around 2000 and the track, yeah, 2004, I think it was. And again, I told you my friends um were pushing me to do it, and one of my friends was friends with Carl Cox's manager, Ian. So at a show, and I burned CDs for all my friends of my tracks or whatever, and she obviously had a copy, and she gave Ian one, who gave it to Carl. So there was no like actual mailing and sending to a PO box or anything like that. It was just a straight like hookup that she forwarded to she sent it to Ian, and about 6 months later, she told me about a set that Carl Cox played the track in.
Wild.
And I was like, you're bullshitting me right now. Like, stop. So anyways, I went and searched for the set. I found it, and I'm like listening through the set. It's like almost done. I'm like, she must have mistaken the track for something else. And sure enough, it came in. And I remember I was sitting in Tim Hortons parking lot having a coffee, smoking a joint with one of my buddies, and like we're listening to the set together. And yeah, I pretty much started like almost tearing up, almost crying. I'd be like, wow, this is fucking crazy. That's probably the biggest validation from one of your biggest heroes that you can receive. So that was the biggest turning point of how I proceeded with the next 5 years of my life.
Well, then what did happen after that? What was the result of the turning point? I mean, we know the end result, but like that stage when you were there, I mean, like, did you feel like after you heard the mix and Carl dropping your track, were you running back to the studio to create more magic right away? So that was it. It was massive fuel proponent.
I could not. Yeah, I could not have the motivation in me just went to have that happen, just skyrocketed to another level. And I would just sit and produce tracks and that's when I actually started, sending out to other labels. And I also, started hooking up with Nathan with Raw Authentic in 2005. So we started releasing a shitload on our label.
All right. Well, hold on for a sec. Hold on. I do want to get into that, and I love it. You're answering questions before I've got a chance to ask them, because if anyone doesn't know, is Raw Authentic is you and Nathan together?
So Raw Authentic was actually started just by Nathan and his brother Jason. They started it in I think 2005, and he's the one who signed that track that Carl played, Everybody. He's the one who released it. So working with him and having that outlet, I fast forward, I think it was to 2006, and that's when we decided for me to actually jump on the label and be a partner. So yeah, Nathan was actually the originator of the label, and then we partnered up shortly after.
So now you're releasing music on Raw Authentic. You're releasing music on other labels as well.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself exclusive mostly to Raw Authentic?
Well, I'm just saying, like those first few years from 2005 to 2008ish, 2009ish, where that was just anything I did, I could put it out. I didn't have to sign to a label to release it because I had my own, but I was still sending out here and there. Luckily, a lot did get a lot of. Sorry,
no. I'm jumping in. I'm too excited. Obviously, I feel were you sending out labels, like to music to labels? Were you doing that because you wanted to get played, or was that you were looking to get signed?
No, I was never like I even still at that stage, 2007, 2008, like I still didn't understand the process of what it took to jump from just being a local DJ to being a local DJ who makes music and releases music, and gets it supported overseas and stuff. Like I still didn't understand, how the hell do I become one of those guys that's traveling on a plane every week and playing in clubs all over the world? So even though I was sending out music here and there, it was still like to, the smaller B team labels, because that's what we were, right? I didn't have those huge links to, bigger labels or even a relationship with these guys to have them hear it firsthand. So what happened was in 2009, I released a record on, again, a smaller label. And do you know DJ Simi from Italy?
I've heard the name. Yeah, he used to have a partner that he recorded with as well. There was like a team, like it was like a two dude.
Simi and Master Keys, I think it was. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I released a track that he ended up playing in one of his sets, and he was playing with Dubfire a lot, and he was playing for a show and opening for him in Italy, I think, and he played the track. And Dubfire asked him what it was, and was, what the hell is this? I need it, blah blah blah. And Simi told him who it was, and the next I don't remember, a few days later, I had woken up and I checked my MySpace, and there was a message from I know, right? It sounds so crazy.
No, but I mean the history is relevant, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure.
MySpace was a massive, fuel proponent for music and artists and producers.
100%. But yeah, so I woke up one morning to a message from Dubfire on MySpace, and I thought it was fully like some spam thing going on, like as accounts get hacked and just say shit. But it was a really forward, detailed message about my track. So I'm like, how could this be fake? I replied, and that was when the hookup with him started. And he told me he basically wanted to sign that track, which was already signed. And in my head, I'm like, shit, I'm missing a boat here, because like I could have signed it as him.
Was that what it was, or was it that I need to learn about licensing right now?
Yeah, right. I know. But either way, it was a foot in the door with him, and from there on, there was a direct relationship. Which he asked me to do stuff for his label, and it was shortly after that where I released my first EP on SciTech, and shortly after that is when he signed me to the agency, which was literally a light switch, like on off. I became a local DJ, and he took me on the road with him to open for him like almost every show for the next 2 years, which obviously put me in all the correct positions and meeting the right people and building my own profile through him. I owe him so much.
What would you say would be the strong differences from being on the road as a touring performer versus being here in Toronto? Even if you were doing 3 or 4 shows over the course of the weekend in Toronto, what would you say the differences between doing the shows here locally and getting on an airplane and ending up in Italy and performing there?
Yeah, I mean, like we were doing that when we were, at the peak of being artists, the DJs in the city. We were playing those 3-4 shows every weekend, and we thought it was hard sometimes, and as great as it was, getting to tour and being, those three shows in your own city turned into 3 different cities over a weekend. So there's a huge difference. I mean, every time we had a show here in Toronto, I had to go to another show. It was literally go home or drive to it. Now you're throwing in the airports and the no sleep and the sacrifice of not being able to go home.
Were you going home in between the sets locally? Would you go home? Would you do the shower? Would you repack the record bag?
Like when I was doing Toronto.
Yeah. When you were local, would in between? So if you, let's say the shows weren't exactly back to back, so like it was one show wasn't finishing and 2 hours later you were starting somewhere else. Right. Say it was Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Are you going home and you're doing a reset?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I mean, you know how it goes.
I've got
sometimes
an idea.
Sometimes we jump to someone's someone's got a hotel room, or we would get a hotel room, or someone who lives downtown.
But there was a
after
reset
party
that was happening. There was a reset that was happening in between the shows.
Yes, sometimes. But sometimes yes, sometimes.
Were you able to do that while you were on the road? Because I mean, like in this instance,
so that's another thing with what comes with sacrifice. When you just say sleep, sometimes you can't even get a meal in you. I've had shows where I've literally gone already the night with no sleep, gone on an airplane, and I suck at sleeping on airplanes. Land, have enough time maybe for a shower, not even enough time to order dinner, go do that all over again, and then you're on another plane. So there's a huge difference. It's very easy to play now. I mean, now that I see it from seeing as a touring DJ and a local DJ, playing 3 shows in your own city versus playing 3 shows while touring is a whole different ballgame. And thankfully I'm built for it. I can do it. I love it. But I've seen so many guys who have been there and have the chance to to have that touring life that, you know, it's just not for them. And I understand completely why, you know, it wouldn't be for someone, because there's a whole other world to doing that job.
Would you call yourself a good flyer? Okay, are you okay with flying? It doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't love flying, but I like being in new places and I love traveling. But the actual flying part, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good at it. I don't miss flights. The only thing I'd suck is I'm not the best like sleeper on airplanes, which is a big thing, because if you have an hour flight or 2 hour flight and you're on no sleep, those 2 hours could be
Gold.
the difference, you know?
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes like I just can't pull it off. Sometimes I can't.
Did you find that it was an energy buildup that you had coming with inside of you, because you knew that you were getting to a new show, you knew that you were going to the new destination, brand new humans in front of you, everyone's, you know, obviously they're showing up because they're excited to see you, you know.
Right, of course.
Is that what kept you awake on the airplanes, or was it?
Yeah, sometimes it's pressure to be refreshed a little bit, which makes me not sleep. Sometimes I could just be coming off an amazing gig and like there's no shot I'm sleeping, because that was such an incredible night and you played such an incredible set and the vibe was so insane. Like the last thing I want to do right now is sleep. I'm just like, I was just, you know, I'm in a happy mood. I don't feel like shutting down. But, you know, come your next show, you're pretty fucking tired.
So now
So
this is happening. Let's move past the 2005. Rawthentic has got a form of establishment towards it. Your songs are getting played by heavy hitters like Cox, Dubfire, and other legends like Simi. When this started happening, now what was the pressure that you put upon yourself as an artist? Do you think that did you further take this time when you weren't starting the touring life, when you'd come back home to do a real reset? Did you find yourself exhausted? Did you find yourself running back into the studio to create? What was your process about there?
Yeah, so usually, I mean, so yeah, I started touring, yeah, 2010. So those first 5 years, you know, being from Canada and having to play a lot in Europe, to keep going back and forth, not only is uh, a huge fucking disaster when it comes to travel time, but you know, also very expensive. And you know, those 5 years are still critical in building your profile and getting into those higher fees. So it made more sense for me to just basically live on the go. I home based in Barcelona for like 5 years. So you know, those 3 4 months, those 4 months in the summer, I'm an hour away flight from wherever I got to go in Europe. So that was, you know, another sacrifice I had to make to not be home. And then what was I getting at here?
We're visiting about the pressures and stresses that you had for reset, and how you dealt with that when the touring stopped.
Right. So for me to not come home and be able to just stay in Europe was big to reset, because you know, everywhere I would stay, if I was playing a show in Italy, I would stay a couple extra days, you know, just to like, you know, recharge and then go back to Barcelona. So I made it where everything was just very short, less travel, as much less travel as I can get. And then after, you know, those 5 years, when I decided to come back home, because, you know, I was kind of on my own, I had a good profile enough I could afford to, you know, go away for a week or two if I wanted to, or I could afford to come back. So that was easier on me. Where things started to change again was, you know, when I had the kid, and you know, being married and now living with a family. That's when things really started to change when it came to traveling. That's when you really realize like the highest level of sacrifice that you have to be okay with as a touring DJ.
You mean leaving your family behind for a period amount of time? And
yeah, because I mean, like, you know, when I was around 33, 34 years old and traveling, if you asked me, do you want to have kids and this and that, and I mean, my immediate answer was no. And it was not because I didn't want kids. I love kids. For me, I'm just thinking I would love to have kids with another lifestyle, because I feel like I'm gonna have a kid and then always be away. I'm like, that's just not fair. So it weighed heavy on me. And then, it wasn't until, you know, you start hitting that 35 year old, you know, that age, that danger age where it's like now or never. And you have a girl who she's in the same boat, right? She's like, if we're going to do this, we got to do this now too. So obviously it's not something that we could have passed up, and we went for it, and it was the greatest thing we've ever did. You know, it's amazing.
You're rave dad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's an absolute blessing. It just came with new different challenges when traveling. So, you know, if I was going to, I basically have to come home. I would want to come home as much as I could to be with him. Whereas if he wasn't in the picture, I could just, you know, hang around for that whole week until I have another gig in that same type, you know, same area ish. But now there's none of that. I need to be with him as much as I can. So
when we first started talking here 20, 30 minutes ago in the interview,
yeah,
what you mentioned was the cycle of music. In my opinion, I feel right now that techno is now it's cycling back up. It seems like it's returning to a strong forward prominence in dance music.
yeah,
People that were not listening to techno before are starting to listen to techno right now. This is the I guess a new breed of people, a new audience. That's even though there's really no prominent dance floor right now to go to because of
right.
everything that's happening around the world. It still feels
Hmm.
that as far as a genre, by my opinion, that it's on an upswing, and and
Yeah.
and recently it seems like the moniker of business techno is I guess it's a popular term, a shade term as well by a lot of, I guess what I would say, very serious techno people. The chin scratch. Um,
Yeah.
how do you feel about the title? Do you think that it's deserved? Do you feel that techno is techno? What are your thoughts?
I mean, like, you know, like every genre, there's techno and what you consider to be like real techno or real house music. Um, do I think there's a lot of techno available that people are gravitating to without knowing the real roots and history of what real techno is? Then the answer is yes. Um, uh, the way I see it in terms of its growth, you know, a lot of these people that have been introduced to EDM and been going to these festivals, you know, they get older and they it's natural progression. They start wandering over to the other stage to see Sven Vath or you know, Ben Klock, and they're getting educated, which is basically what is growing techno in itself. Um, but yeah, I mean, business techno, I mean, I'm not even sure what this term means. Is this like basically saying that it's like a cheesy version of techno?
I feel like from what I've digested, it seems like
Yeah.
everything is cool until it reaches a level of popularity. And then when that popularity hits, then what was cool is no longer cool. And now it's just popular. And if somebody that wasn't listening to techno adopts it and now they start listening to it, it's almost like that's wrong. And
Yeah.
I feel like if you love music, if you love techno music, then
Mhm.
then I think that you want all of it to work, because it's like you said. I feel like listening to that hard Chicago house. You know,
Right.
the drums were,
And
smacking
yeah.
909 at 135 beats a minute. I
Yeah.
mean, this is.
No
I
joke.
maybe it's house music. I'm saying maybe because I mean, in my opinion, I don't think it really is, but it ha- it
Yeah.
it had that name, so you go with it, and I think you go with the name only so that when you went shopping, whoever you were talking with in the store would be able to identify what it was that you were really looking for. Maybe there was the stash in the back, and there was a brand new stash, and you want to get access to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you would say
For
the
sure.
genre names that you would have access to it too. But to me, when I
Mhm.
listen to something that someone would call business techno, actually, I want to say actually half the time listening to it, I'm like, I'm not exactly sure this is techno. I hear the techno
Yeah.
elements and the influence in it, but this isn't exactly techno.
Yeah, because, you know, and because you are educated and you know what real techno is. You've been around for so long, whereas a lot of people today, they're just, you know, they take what's in front of them without going back. You know, if it's very easy, I can spend an hour on Beatport and I could literally say everything is in the wrong genre category. You know what I mean? So again, it's just adopting the name because like the hard house thing. So when these kids are like, for me, the way I am is if, you know, I love something and I love whatever genre of music, I always want to know the history and where it comes from and what it sounds like 5 years ago and what it sounds like 10 years ago. I just don't think many people really do that today. But yeah.
Are you A&Ring your own stuff for the label when you're releasing, or do you send music out to peers that you trust to give you the feedback that you think that might take the track to the next place? And has that happened where you've given the track off to someone that you trust and admire, and then they come back at you with some serious strong notes, and then you change the direction of the song? Has this been a thing for you?
It's happened. Yeah, me and Nathan are notorious for doing that with Raw Authentic. We don't send it to anyone we trust. We do it ourselves. If I hear a track that is just like, you know, it has the bones, but it could very easily go to the next level, I'll sit there and give you a detailed description of what I think you should, well, I would do to make it, you know, to make it hit that spot. And yeah, people do it, and people are happy to do it. You know, we don't want to release anything that are on our label that has a shelf life of 2 weeks. You know, we look at every release being like, I want to pull this out in a year. So that's why we really take pride in A&Ring the tracks. You know, obviously a lot of stuff we don't have to, but there's been a handful of them where I want to, and you know, people are happy and thankfully accepting, because I'm sure there's some people who will just be like, no, this is what it is. But you know, it's I think
What do
it's
you think
important.
would be the pressure difference between releasing on a label that you're running and operating versus releasing on a friend or a peer or acquaintance, even just a stranger, releasing on an alternate label? What are the differences of those pressure?
You mean like
Yeah.
for me as an art, for me as yeah, I mean, our label, like I said, I mean, we really love every release, and we want, the label's been hot since it came out. It's been doing very well, so we have a little bit of, you know, high standards for it when it comes to A&Ring and the music we sign. Yeah, for a friend's label, I mean, there's more just like, here's the track, I'm hooking you up with something for your label. There's not that passion you have for your own, if that's what you're asking.
Would you say that there's how about this? What would be the big differences between being what you said, local performing artist releasing music, but being local,
Yeah.
and wanting to take that adventure out on the road and making it work?
Hold on, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So when you brought up before that you're locally rocking, you're releasing music, but you're not hitting the road. But you did. You did do the music. You did, and I'm here. I watched it.
Okay.
You know, I saw you come up. I saw you were
Yeah,
in a record store. We both worked in record stores, right?
yeah, for sure.
We're giving
Mm,
music to other humans and performers, DJs and hobbyists alike. You know, so you've got your
yeah.
own form of seeding that you're doing while you're moving towards it. But what would you think is, I'm asking, what is the difference and what is that stage? What would you think sets it apart between someone that stays local and somebody that moves onto the road?
Yeah, I mean, if you're speaking musically, I mean, for me, I had to kind of, you know, when I was making music and a local DJ, I was kind of making music uh, pretty freely. But you know, I would go into the studio with a blank slate. You know, once I hit that higher level and wanted to release on these other labels, I would have to, you know, you gotta. I don't want to say you have to go into the studio making music like with a clean slate and with hold on, what am I trying to say here? I'm fumbling here.
Utility
I'm
room
trying to
asking
say
the
it
real
has,
questions.
what's that? Yeah, no, I'm basically saying when I was home making music for my label, more for myself, I could literally make anything I want and release it. now that I got to another level, working with all these bigger labels, I would find myself having to, I don't want to say the word cater, because that's not, I think that's wrong in production. I just
collaborate.
I guess I want to say collaborate, find a way to fit without sacrificing yourself. Because, you know, when it comes to releasing on a certain label, you know, you want to work with labels that, you know, are throwing events and giving you more than just a release. So I find a little bit more pressure in making music as I got to a higher level, because I felt like I always have to adapt a little more, and, you know, I didn't want to lose any of my soul when making music for other labels. So I just, you know, I really found a good way in the studio where I'm comfortable and I know I can always be me, even though I release on a label that maybe you wouldn't see me on so much per se.
Were you ever finding yourself in a position where the compromise on the collaboration was not favorable?
Like as in working with
Or a
another
label?
artist?
Do you ever find yourself stuck where it wasn't good, or has it been a smooth ride in that process?
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've you know, I've been in a position where I've been asked to do something for someone for a certain label, and um, I ended up feeling like I was just not delivering and not being true to myself as a creator and as a producer, to the point where I'm just like, it shouldn't be this hard. I could make music, you know, night and day if I'm doing what I want, but there was too much sacrifice in this request that I couldn't bring myself to just complete it. It's better. I don't want music shouldn't be stressing me out. It should be taking away all the stress, being in the studio and turning everything off. So yeah, there's definitely been some clash with a few labels that, you know, I've been asked to do stuff for that I couldn't pull
This
off.
challenge, when you were faced with this challenge, how did you rise out of it to get to the next project? Because you didn't want to carry, obviously, whatever the weight of the issue was from the past project. What was your method of getting out of that and moving forward, moving on?
Yeah, it's literally for me, it's as simple as like turning off a switch. Like when I made that decision to not give it any more energy, because I know the outcome wouldn't have been what I was trying to achieve anyway. It's more of a matter of just shutting off and going to the studio, locking myself in there and doing what I do and how I do it. And it's just a form of, it's very therapeutic to me. It's just, it's humbling, and it's just like, there's no direction. No direction for me is the best direction.
Let's look back for a real quick sec, because I'm still joyous about that moment when you were in the parking lot and burning away and listening to the mix,
Right.
and then and you're doing your happy dance, because Carl played your track. Now we're fast forwarding. You're getting onto airplanes. Are you happy dancing? Exhausted, in between jet lag, all of that. Are you happy dancing before the gigs?
Oh, there's always happy dancing, whether it's before, after, during, in between. There's always happy dancing. I mean, there's been times where I've been flying home off an amazing weekend of shows, amazing clubs, and it's almost like a pinch yourself
You're
moment
above
where
the
like,
clouds. You're higher
holy
than the
shit.
clouds.
Yes, exactly. And it's just like, did this weekend really just happen? Like I just was here, rocked it, 3 crazy, amazing, you know, bucket list clubs, and now I'm flying home. Like, and I just made a bunch of money doing it.
Doing what you
It's
love.
just, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing, and it never gets old. And for me, when those feelings stop, then there's probably a
What are
problem.
you doing, Carlo, to celebrate these moments? Do you take the time to stop and smell the flowers from like, how are you celebrating your own success?
Yeah, I mean, for the first 6 or 7 years, it was really go mode. There was no rest for the wicked. I mean, I'm in it. I'm playing, I got shows, like there's no reason for me to like, take a year off or something, or take 6 months off. I'm like, because it's I don't know if it's gonna come back. You know what I mean? There's this feeling inside where I'm just like, if I want to take a big break, like, is it gonna be there when I'm done? Because this industry is so saturated, and there's always someone to take your spot, right? But yeah, now with the kid and having family, it's now that's how I celebrate the success I've had with music, and it's with them. It's being able to be home. It's being able to make my own schedule more accordingly to accommodate this other life with having a kid and a family, versus back then I wouldn't take a day off if I didn't have to. So it's just a different way of thinking now that I'm getting older.
What would you say is driving you right now to the next place? Besides, the family is obviously real strong. I guess what I'm
Yeah.
asking is that I know for me, for example, I would come back from a gig, and I started thinking to myself, I need to take a second to celebrate what just happened, because a whole bunch of shit just happened. And as much as the musical journey in a set has peaks and valleys to help the audience so that you're not just burning it out,
Mm.
also the feedback, the self feedback that I be giving myself is a peak and valley thing. I would think to myself, what can I do next so that I'm not, if I come back, for example, and hitting that key club in Italy, like, I'm not returning and giving the same show. What is
Right.
it for you that you feel is going to be the next step? Do you know what that next step is?
I mean, for me, the next step is always, to try to be in a better place than you were last year, and so on. Now, because of everything that's happening around us with COVID and not touring, and our industry literally got pulled out from underneath us just like that. There's been, as shitty as it is, there's been a lot of silver linings in it, which have now put me in a positions to really think about what the next steps are
What
going to
would you
be for
say would
me.
be those silver linings?
Well, one thing is time to do all this shit that's been in my head that I could never do for the past 10 years, because every time I got home, I'm either too tired, and in the blink of an eye, I'm already on a plane. And even in the last 3 years, come home and I have a few days, it's going to be spent with my son. I'm not going to, do anything else besides either sleep or play or be with my kid. But now, having all this time, it's given us opportunity to do, to expand the label, to create other revenue channels, because obviously touring is not one of them. So we've been growing Raw Authentic by, doing different things. We started a sample pack business. We were looking to do tutorial videos, just stuff like this to really expand the label, because before COVID, I mean, you really didn't realize how much your life depended on touring until it's taken away from you. So a lot of moves definitely had to be made to think about the future. So now I'm just literally focusing on any way that I can make some money that still involves my passion, which is music. There's been times where I've gone off the deep end and be like, all right, do I need to get a job? Do I need to do this? But then I think to myself, I check myself, I'm like, your gift is music. So, you can think of how you can make a buck doing anything that's music related. And that's what we've been doing. And luckily it's been working, and it can hold off until touring starts
Have you
again.
been feeling the online vibe since the start of this shut-in lockdown pandemic? Have you been feeling the vibes from the people, either through DMs, comments on posts? Is this
Yeah, big
vibe
time.
equal or similar to the vibe that you would get from feedback after a great show?
Yeah, people, I mean, we all know how much people love this shit, love partying, love music, and it's really put into perspective now how much you really need it. I mean, I literally hear it daily from friends and WhatsApp groups. It's just like, oh, I wish I was getting ready right now, going to a party and having butterflies. And same for me. I wish I was going to a gig, and I wish I was nervous and I needed a vodka to calm me down, you know, like just all these little things, you know. I'm even having dreams about like just living in Barcelona, and I'm having dreams of my past life. I feels like it was literally another life.
Is that
It's
because
crazy.
it was so fast paced, and that now
Yeah.
it's there's been a freeze, I guess, and this freeze is that's the reflection, is that you're like, this was flying at 1,000,000 miles
Yeah.
an hour at 30,000
Yeah.
feet, and now we've
Yeah.
landed and we're on the tarmac, and fucking it's stopped.
Yeah. And it's stuck for almost a year now. So yeah, to get these little like crazy flashbacks, and it's just like, wow, is that a dream? Was that a dream? You know, it actually feels like that. It's pretty wild.
Where is the idea now? Where is it for you during this pandemic? Is it hope to return to what was? Do
Uh,
you think that changes should happen before we go back to the dance floor?
Sorry, you cut out
I,
big time. I need to
what I
hear
was
that again.
no worries. Is it internet? What do you
Yeah.
think? What do you think that is there? Should there be changes? Should we just go back to how it was?
I mean, obviously, you know, I have a really deep opinion on this COVID stuff, because there's no doubt in my mind that it's real. People are dying, people are getting sick, but I don't think that um, it should have gone to this level of where we're at now in terms of shutting down the planet for what's actually happened. So as I just think, you know, the simple measures should be in play. You know, wash your hands, be hygienic, be cautious of your hygiene. You know, don't get drunk and slobber on another person. I mean, these little things, but I know it's not going to be like that, and that's the part that's hard to swallow, because you know you're already starting to see all these vaccination cards and the proof of getting vaccinated on your passport, all that stuff. This stuff is scaring me, because I mean, traveling sucks already. Like, I don't love to travel. I love going places, but I don't love the travel process. And I'm a little worried about when traveling does kick off again, full touring styles, and it's just gonna make it a lot harder than it was already.
You know, I know that there's legions of people that want to see you back up there, and they want to rock out. Um,
Mm.
will you run into this face first? Will you get back on the road at the first opportunity that you can?
Um, you know, even over the last few months, I've had offers to go to some shows, and there's been a lot of changes now when it comes to taking a show. Uh, Besides safety, obviously, and you know, having to worry about your kid and quarantining and all that stuff. But you know, fees, for example, if I got offered to play a show, I forget where it was, but you know, the fees are obviously lower. Flights are still the same, and then I got to come home and quarantine for 2 weeks. So there's opportunities to take shows, but the reward is not worth it, for what you have to do during this time.
I think that the idea that we can get back to the dance floor in a safe fashion
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it is. I mean, we all want it, you know.
Oh, I want it so bad, for sure. I just want it without having all this worry
Do
behind
you
me.
do you think?
That's all.
And this is actually one of my last questions to you. I guess if it's a heavy question, do you think that there's a difference between music discovery at home versus music discovery on the dance floor? Is it the same
Um,
magic?
I mean, I'm sure people would have a different answer.
Mm.
For me, I love them both. I mean, music discovery from, you know, 15 years ago, going into a record store was magic. Um, Me being at home, even on Beatport, like when you find a song that you're just in love with, it's just, there's that feeling. You're just, I'm head over heel, head
Are
over
you still
heels.
shopping, Carlo? I'm
And
sorry,
yeah,
I'm
being
firing questions at you. Are you still shopping?
that's okay. I'm always shopping. Yeah, I never stop shopping. I mean, people always think, yeah, well, you know, you get all promos and stuff, which is definitely true, but I still find a shitload that I don't get. You can never get everything by just having one, you know, source. It's a never ending game. And, you know, the vinyl digging days, I just do them in a different context.
So moving back to the 2002, 2003, 2004 era of you going into shops, and you know, by 2-3 years into it, you for sure have done a refining on your tastes. Is that energy the same for you right now? When you're shopping, do you find that you've got the same energy that you had going back into the record stores then, as you do sitting at your desk now?
Yeah, I mean, going into the record store obviously is, you hold it to this highest degree. I mean, I spent a whole day taking the GO train from Markham to downtown, and I would I'd hit all the shops. From Play D, and I'd see you at Eastern Bloc.
And then I saw you To the Beat.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we've even seen each other at Fresh Records a few times as well.
Yeah, I think so. I've been there a handful of times for sure. But yeah, it's, for me, it just comes down to the simple joy of discovering music, whether it is in a record shop, it is sitting on your couch on Beatport, or it is in a club Shazamming a track or something. You know what I mean? For me, it's all about finding that gem. And
have you done that? Have you been on the dance floor and been like, whoa, and then held up your phone and been like, I need to know what the fuck this is right now, and Shazammed it?
Never. Wink. But yeah, of course,
cool.
I have done it for sure. I have done it for sure. But that's just like the DJ in you. Like, when you meet a track, like, you're obsessing over it. That's how I am. So if I can throw in a quick Shazam, I will. I'll spend hours trying to find stuff. It's all about the search for me.
Would you say that this might be a graduated move, that the eventuality is that you're not touring and that you're just at home, you're rocking Raw Authentic and productions, but maybe the idea of being out there is not the strong idea? Could you see yourself moving into that graduated place?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could move into a modified version of that place. I mean, I know in my head I always want to be touring. I want to do it as long as I physically can, but now having this time in between and actually being at home, I haven't been home this much in 15 years. So to have, you know, 9 months at home, 8 months at home, it's an eye opener as well. And I think it's going to modify how I am going to live a touring life when it does come back. You know, and now it's putting me in a position to maybe pick and choose more wisely than I have been with touring. You know, stuff that would really beat me down for not a huge return. Now things are going to change for sure.
Before we sign off with each other, assuming somebody is unaware of how to locate all of you and they want to, what would you say would be the shout outs that you'd want to give them? Where can we find Carlo Lio?
Everywhere that people are findable: Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Beatport, YouTube, the whole nine. Simple, easy name, Carlo Lio. Lio, not Leo, which still more than Lio.
It's not in this astrological moment. It's a name.
Yeah, right.
You have 3 tracks in your bag. What are the 3 tracks that never leave? Do you have 3 tracks that never leave? Do you have 2 tracks that never leave? Would you have music that just stays? I'm saying bag because, I mean, you know, we go back, but bag is metaphor. Box, key, disc.
Yeah, there's definitely always a few tracks that never leave. Off the top of my head, Lights Out, Mr. G Dub. What else is there that I always seem to play? The track questions are always the hardest for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey man,
it's too much in my head.
For sure. And I'm firing questions at you nonstop, so it's
yeah. The main track, the one off the top of my head is always the Mr. G Lights Out dub. That is definitely the highest of the high for me. That never leaves my bag. I'll get back to you on the other 2 because there's just too many.
We'll see you in the comments after the post.
Yes, I'll throw them in there.
I really do appreciate you taking the time with us today to share,
Thank-
that your
Yeah,
thoughts, where you're at, and how it's all going. Obviously, we
definitely.
hope that you're staying safe, keeping happy,
Keep
sane.
trying. Yes, definitely trying.
My name is Jello. This is Utility Room, and the show has been absolutely awesome sauce with you,
Super dope.
Carlo Lio. Thank you very
Thanks for having
much.
me. My pleasure.
All right.
All right, Josh.